Good evening, everyone. This is the Revelist. It is May 14th, 2020, and another day living in the weirdest timeline of all time. So, today I will be outlining the second part of my three-part introduction to my core philosophy, the second of three tenets that are at the very center of what I want my cause, my movement to be about. As in the last video, I mentioned the three evils. I will today be bringing to the table the 10 essentials, or what I call the scent essentials. These are 10 things that I believe that any sentient being, at least in human terms, requires to live a fulfilling life and to fulfill their purpose in life. And they are as follows: incandescence or just candescence, residence, sustenance, maintenance, conveyance, ordinance, resistance, relevance, permanence, and finally transcendence. They are in this order for a reason. The first four are things that are more necessary. No, the first five, right? The first five are, the list has changed over the years. The first five are what I believe is required for your physical nature, your body, how you sustain just your, general livelihood. The last five are more, once you have those acquired and have a fair way of maintaining them, you can look for more of a deeper purpose to what you're doing here, basically. The first one, candescence or incandescence, is light, fire. One of the things that humans pride themselves on more, maybe than anything, is the creation of fire, the harnessing of light. Honestly, the oldest religions on the planet looked to the sun for, energy, warmth, basically what grew everything that they needed to sustain themselves. And the day that we harnessed that was the day that we truly separated ourselves away from any other creature on this planet. There is no other creature that seems to cherish fire as much as we do. Fire is, in magic, representative of the human will, the spirit, whatever you call it. And it is our, unabashed, will to progress forward that exemplifies that almost perfectly. And, why not say, light was the first thing that one requires. It's the first thing that, many religions say was the first thing that came into being. So why not say so? Next is residence. Now the third one is sustenance. I put residence above sustenance because, frankly, and I've seen this firsthand, if you do not have a place to stay in order to sleep, you will go crazy. Yeah, your body will die without food. But if you do not have a place to come back to settle in, settle down, recharge, you will go mad slowly. And that is why I want everybody to work for what they have, to earn an opportunity for the things that they require. And the system that we live in gives everybody the opportunity to do that. And to a point where you are fully capable of seeing who wants to be a part of a collectivized system or not. The times we live in are so just completely messed up. It's this weird gray area between, having a system that we love, having a system that we attempt to work with, while seeing that it just doesn't fulfill us the way it has to. It doesn't provide what it needs to, and there's something very wrong with that. I'm not talking about the government giving you everything. I'm talking about just an improper way that this all functions and how it's maintained. The next on my list is sustenance. Sustenance is food, it's water. I would say ultimately that that's the difference between us and, let's say, the third world. It's resources. Sustenance pertains to resources. And that could be anything, but specifically it's about how you sustain your body. We need food for energy. The body must metabolize food for energy. And without it, you will waste away. It takes a little under a week, in some cases, for living without both, for that to kill you, But, like I said, if you don't have a place to stay, even with that, it doesn't matter if you have a pantry's worth of food. If you don't have a pantry, a place to put it. The next on my list is maintenance. Maintenance is basically health, cleanliness. Most health comes down to nutrition. It comes down to what you put in your body. Almost everything that we consume has some sort of chemical in it. I mean, like, 50 points in Scrabble kind of worded chemical, something that nobody can pronounce. There's just so much wrong with that. I mean, we've got people today with allergies that never existed when I was a kid. Peanuts, gluten. I'd never even heard of gluten when I was like 10 years old. And there's something very strange about that. It just doesn't make any sense, because it's food. I mean, how does fucking food give you an allergy? I mean, people can have allergies, but allergies to such simple things, Shit, allergy to the sun makes more sense than a peanut. But I digress. It's also about cleanliness, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, keeping yourself, for society's sake, presentable, but keeping, washing the dirt off after a day's work, things like that. The next on the list is conveyance. Conveyance, I really would chalk up to freedom of movement. Right now with COVID, almost nobody has an open freedom of movement the way that they used to. You run the risk some places of getting pulled over by a cop if you're not going to the right place, or in some of the worst places, being followed by a drone if you're walking or running along a path in the middle of nowhere. Certainly happening in Britain as far as I know. And that's not right. Definitely something off about that too. See, the first 5 are basically akin to our, capacity to acquire what we need to live a physical life, a tangible existence. It's our body. It's the physical. It's what of the earth we cultivate and use, for what it is that we need to live. And we're having all of that stripped away from us very slowly. That tends to come last. The next 5 tend to be taken first. The first of the last 5 is ordinance. See, once you've acquired everything that you need to live, you can start developing a society. The first attempts at civilization were, people building a fence, building a wall, keeping everything on the outside. And the individuals who derived the idea for the wall were the ones who were made the leaders. It's a little simplistic. It probably took a lot more than that. But generally speaking, those who oversaw the wall were the ones who were deemed capable of leading. Where boundaries are set, where borders are set, is where the one who governs over that territory, governs over everything in it. So laws had to be made. And laws are fine. There's nothing wrong with having a sense of, limitation, keeping things in a place to know what it is, where it is, how it is. But when you get to a point when you forget that there's a world outside of it, that there's a world outside your laws, you lose yourself in what it was that you were prior to being lost within it, And when the laws don't work, America was founded on what you do when the law, the rule of law, fails the people. And that's what we've forgotten. Certainly one thing we've forgotten. And the next in line on my list is what you do about it. The next in line is resistance. See, resistance gives people a sense of accomplished individuality. While attempting to live in a collective state, resistance gives you a sense of your spark of individual will. It gives you what you need to feel as though not only are you not only are you an individual, but that you are an individual who has learned what it is to live in a system cohesively, collectively with other people. See, when you live in a major city, something I've learned is that most cities have to be what we call liberal, because you are living with everyone else who lives around you. Everybody is different, but everybody's having to come together, usually in compact, very cramped spaces. And the human will, if it's put up against the wall too far, it's going to crack. It's going to snap, and usually that does not turn out well for anybody. So what I've learned is you have to say yes. Every time you live in a city, you are more liberal because you have to be able to cohere much more capably and almost stringently than you would, let's say, in a rural area. If you live out in the country, somewhere sparse, sparsely populated, you get to say no more. You get to have, your ability to resist what someone else says. You know, resistance is the capacity to say no. Now, there's nothing wrong with living in a big city, but you do have to remember what being in a metropolitan landscape is like. You have to say yes to keep everything working. Although, living out in the country, you run into, pockets of what I'd like to believe is tribalism. It's people have to cohere to some extent. Nobody's really a hermit. You have to cohere, and sometimes, over time, you find these pockets of places that think that their laws are the only ones that work, so they're willing to let common sense go right out the window. And that brings me to the next on my list, relevance. Relevance is once you've acquired, all the things that you need to live, keep your body going, establish what you are living in a community. It's what you do with yourself, how you keep your life going, what what your purpose is, Can that be a family? Can that be, going out and, helping the sick? Can it be, joining the military? Can it be, it can be anything, really. It's how you maintain your, grasp of, now that you've acquired, an individual will, standing atop the safety of the society you live in. What do you do with your time? I'd say finding love is definitely one of the main hallmarks of this notion. What is relevant to you? Which then leads right into the next one, which is permanence. Once you've gotten a fair beat on who you are and what you stand for, what are you leaving behind? Your life isn't going to last forever, and you want to leave a mark. You want to have some kind of, ideas to how people are going to remember you. A good way to figure something like this out is to have people write your eulogy for you, like before you die. Like, what would they say at your funeral? How will your life be put into a perfect little paragraph? How did you make somebody feel? What did you leave behind, basically? And finally, is transcendence. Now, everything from 1 to 10, or 1 to 9, is pretty much leading to this one. We're, we all die. Everybody passes away. But not everybody has the opportunity to go in a peaceful fashion. Not everybody statistically is going to be able to anyway. So, some would even probably say that, a major hallmark of any civilization is how well they treat their elderly, how well they let them slide on into whatever's next, if anything at all. I personally think there is. There's too much overwhelming evidence to say differently, but how do you give life a proper send-off? And even then, transcendence is, your sense of faith. How have you been, not per se, or not per se to, or not per se, to like sin or, being saved or anything, but how have you properly acquired what you need to feel like your life was completely worth it in the end? Yeah, you leave something, which is, the previous one, but, do you feel truly fulfilled? It's not simply about your body, eventually passing away and you having the chance to pass gracefully, but do you truly feel like what you left behind was completely worth the life that you lived? And I don't know if a lot of people ever feel that, And for me, this movement, this cause, is my attempt at feeling fulfilled. Can't say I've lived the most graceful life. I'm doing pretty well for myself now, but I need to feel like I've transcended my demons, my past. And that's what all of this is about. And you're going to get me as real and as raw as I can be. It'll get better over time with, the quality of these videos, but that's basically it. You're going to get me, and I hope to, build a following from this, because I'd like my legacy to be left as, I made a difference. I think we all want to. But anyway, it's getting pretty long, another 23-minute video. I'm the Revelist, and I want you to find your own pathway to heaven, regardless of what anyone says. Whatever you were raised with, you need to find your own path. It's the only way for you to feel fulfilled. Religion tells you how you should feel. Your spiritual path is what you cultivated yourself. So please, deviate to your own Elysium. Have a good night.